Action. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Council on Climate Solutions. I see it's the 29th meeting of the council and our third meeting of this year. I think I've been to maybe every one of them. That's a lot of meetings over the last few years. I'm going to go over the agenda, and we've got a little bit of housekeeping to do. I do want to make note of, excuse me, we have one council member reappointment, and I'm thrilled that she's rejoining the council or staying on for another term. Lana Pollock. Lana, are you there somewhere? Don't worry, I'm not calling on you to make a speech, but we just want to thank you and acknowledge you for your service and all that you bring to these meetings. Let's do attendance then. I'm going to go through the list, and sometimes the person, there'll be an alternative here, so we can just note that as we go. Frank Bieber, are you here?
I am present, but having problems with my webcam. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you sounded like you were in a tunnel somewhere, but I'm glad that you're here, and thank you for joining. I think we don't have Dr. Director Boring today, right? We have John Malik instead. Okay. Okay, great. Thanks for coming, John. I think Director Bowen from DNR, I think we might have Scott Whitcomb. Is that right? Okay, no DNR today, so we can do whatever we want. Director Corbin, I see Kate Bell. Yes, how are you doing? Good. I love that you're in the room too.
I'm right across the street.
Yeah, thank you. Carrie Duggan.
Present.
I just saw her join. Oh.
Carrie, are you here?
I'm
Okay.
here. Can you not hear me?
Little quiet,
Oh.
but that's
I'm
all right.
Here. I'm here.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you. And Mary Liz Estrada.
I'm present.
Awesome, thanks. Director Eubanks, I don't think she's here, but maybe Ryan from Treasury? Anybody else from
Ryan,
Treasury?
present,
Okay.
attending virtually.
Ryan Larry. Thank you. Jim Harrison, are you here?
I am, Phil. Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Oh, good to see you too, or feel your presence at least. From DHHS, I'm showing Aaron Ferguson, maybe? Anybody from DHHS? Okay. Brandon Hoffmeister. Are you here, Brandon? How about Marnese Jackson? Okay. How about Kevin Kolvar from Dow? Phyllis Meadows. We ever have to worry about quorum here?
I don't think so.
Okay. Do we have anybody from MEDC?
Good afternoon, Steve McCall from MEDC covering.
Oh,
North
thanks,
Hudson.
Steve. You saved me there. I was getting worried. And how about Grace McKinsey?
Present.
Present? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Peck. No Peck today. Lana Pollock. She just texted me and said she'd be on, so, but has to leave early, I think. Chairman Scripps. Darrell Slaughter.
Good afternoon. Good to see you, Phil.
Thank you. Professor Stolper.
I am here. Hi, Director Roos and everyone.
Awesome. Director Wyfrick or designee.
Zach Rabel is here for MDOT.
Oh, thanks for joining, Zach. Cynthia Williams or anybody from Ford. Maybe Corey. No. Okay, we'll be able to zoom through this agenda today. Thank you for all of you who are here. We got some important updates and things to talk about. Let's take care of some housekeeping first, though. The draft agenda was sent to members on November 12th. Could I get I hope you had a chance to look at it and study it carefully. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Support. Harrison.
Okay. I didn't catch who made the motion?
Darrell.
Darrell, you're here. All right. And I didn't hear who supported.
Harrison.
Jim Harrison. All right. Stalwarts. All right. Is there any discussion on this? Okay. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. We have an agenda. And then we have the August 26th meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve those, please?
So moved. Darrell.
All right, Darrell, way to come through. Anybody support that?
I'll second.
Support Harrison.
Who is that?
Or Jim again. You take your pick between me or Jim.
Okay, half Jim Harrison. All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. We have approved minutes. And one more thing, I know you're enjoying this, the approval of the 2026 schedule for meetings. There are 4 of them scheduled. Those were sent out also on November 12th. Could I get a motion to approve that schedule?
So moved.
Second.
I'm thinking that's Darrell and
Carrie yelling into her mic.
Carrie. Okay. Well, I'm not sure why you guys are like ultra quiet here. I think it's probably just on our end. Maybe we'll turn up the heat a little bit. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. Hope the schedule looked okay to you. Can I just get a vote? All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, now, yeah. All right. You're there. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, carries. We've got a schedule. Great. That's housekeeping. So I'm just going to give you a little preview of the meeting here today. We have kind of 3 main parts to it. First, we're going to hear some updates from the Office of Climate and Energy and their work in driving implementation of the My Healthy Climate Plan. And there's a lot going on. This team has been very active in the last month or two. And I think there's some exciting developments, things that they're working on, big ambitions for the coming year or two. And then we're going to hear from one of our council members, Mary Liz Estrada, Climate and Energy Jobs Liaison for Michigan AFL-CIO Workforce Development Institute, and also a former member of cohort number 2 of the My Healthy Climate Fellows. I love seeing fellows move on to bigger and better things and having a big impact. She's going to talk about the climate and workforce development, trades of today and tomorrow. Trailer tour. Sorry, that was all one item there. Can't wait to hear about that. And then the third thing is we're going to hear from Eagle Director Adam Wygant, who's the director of our Geologic Resources Management Division. He's going to talk about Eagle's efforts to plug orphan wells, which has been a big success. So those last 2 pieces of the 3 items on the agenda are continuing with the trend of trying to bring to life some of the activity that's outside of state government totally, and also within Eagle or the other agencies that are represented on the council here. And I think we've been doing a nice tour of those in recent meetings, and so I want to keep that up. Before we get started, I'm the lucky one to talk about 2 pretty big developments that this is not news, don't worry, but they're kind of a couple of really big, I'd say 2 of the 3 big programs that were meant to try to bring all the benefits of clean energy to everybody across our state, and particularly those who are most in need and can most benefit from them. One of them is the Solar for All program. And so we're all aware that there was a rescission, or I'm not sure the exact terminology for that, of that grant. Happened a couple of months ago. But I'm happy to say that Attorney General Nessel, along with 22 other state directors, has entered into 2 lawsuits to reinstate that grant. And with one's against EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, and one's against EPA, I guess. So that's a program that had such importance and still does, and we're keeping the flame going here because it was at this time of energy uncertainty and costs. We're in an affordability crisis in so many areas, and here we have a program that was going to, for something like 900,000 to 1 million households in Michigan, significantly lower their energy bills and also help to limit the impact of utility shutdowns, power outages, things of that nature, just provide more resiliency to our effort. I was at an event a couple weeks ago with the Attorney General where we met with a number of the awardees, folks who had already organized their community, gotten people involved, partners, full implementation mode, and this was just torn out from under them. And it was really good for me to hear from all of them. I think it was helpful to them to be heard, and importantly, that's part of building the case here. And I want to keep hope alive on this one because the Attorney General and the 20 or 22 other states who participated in a lot of these challenges to clawing back funding have been pretty successful. I think more than 50% success rate. So we're going to give her everything she needs to try to win this back. And then in a bit of positive news, the state budget signed in October included the legislative authority for us to begin work on the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. And that was a program that was awarded to Eagle in July 2024, something like that. And it took 1 year plus to get that appropriated. And thankfully, we did it before the program got taken back because it had been inactive for so long. This is such a fundamental program to our ability to get renewables adoption. And I'm not sure I fully appreciated how important it is. As a program, our entry into the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant competition, led by Office of Climate and Energy, all the folks here at the table that around me, was to focus on the one thing that would really make the difference in us achieving our goals of the My Healthy Climate Plan, and that was to fill the gap in to achieve our 60% by 2030 goal. And there's a program. The program was originally piloted as a Renewables Ready Communities program. So communities across the state, in cities, in rural areas, all over, that don't know political boundaries, if they are able and want to go forward with utility scale renewables, they receive incentives that can be used for all the things that communities never have money to buy for. It could be roads, could be fixing up a courthouse or a community center or a playground, infrastructure related things. And then there's also part of this, a brownfield renewable energy pilot that's part of it. This grant has the goal of incentivizing over 16,000 megawatts of solar and wind and 750-ish megawatts of storage. To put that into terms, it'll help Michigan achieve 58% of what we need to achieve the 60% renewable energy by 2030 goal. It's a really big deal, and it is going into action now, and we're really excited about that. So that's all for me. I'm going to hand it over to Julia to take us through the agenda and talk through, or you guys will figure out who's going to talk about Office of Climate and Energy stuff.
Sure. Thank you, Director Roos. So as we do every meeting, we'll start with an update from our office around activities at the state of Michigan to implement the My Healthy Climate Plan. And we have some shared presentation responsibilities today, so you'll hear from a few of our team members. But to kick us off, our Chief Climate Officer, Alessandra Carrion, will begin. If you could go forward One more slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I think Haley's kicking us off. So Haley Hill.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So nice to meet you all or to see some of you again. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Haley Hill. I am the office coordinator for OCE. I am the one that you get your emails from. So now you can put a face to the name. I sent out a council survey in September. And many of you were kind enough to complete the survey for us, and we really value that feedback. We were asking for your input on the purpose and goals and intended audience for the 2025 My Healthy Climate Plan annual report, and more broadly, just your thoughts and suggestions for OCE as a whole as we move forward and continue to implement the goals of the My Healthy Climate Plan. So again, as I said, we really appreciate those of you who took the time to complete the survey. We may not be able to get to everything all at once, but this will definitely help us to shape our decision making moving forward. And I wasn't able to put all of the comments here on the slide, but I compiled all of the results into a few categories. So we have enhancing engagement, stories to uplift, and then our 2025 annual report. So in enhancing engagement, your suggestions included anyone involved in the legislative process, those who have directly participated in our climate programs and offerings, the Chamber of Commerce, insurance companies, people involved in the tech sector, and then renewable energy union contractors. And then someone also suggested just finding ways to more proactively engage with the public as a whole, which we thought was fantastic. Some of the stories that you suggested that we continue to uplift in the coming year included energy security and affordability, and then the Michigan AFL-CIO Workforce Development Institute, which we will hear more about shortly. And then looking at your suggestions for the 2025 annual report, it included plans to advance clean energy and the My Healthy Climate Plan goals, renewable and zero carbon electricity generation, progress on state climate programs, key actions accomplished to support the reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions by sector, and then including definitions for key terms, which are all fantastic suggestions and ideas. So again, thank you all. I don't know if we have any questions regarding the survey, or Ale, if you had anything to add to that section, but I think that's everything I had.
The only addition is that this was one moment in time, one survey, but I think our goal is just for that proactive feedback loop. Now you all have met Haley, so certainly invite other recommendations or questions for us as we go, but appreciate the time folks took to fill this out.
All right, I think that's me next. So hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Power. I'm Senior Climate Action Officer here at OCE, and I'm going to share a little bit about two of our programs that center around mobilizing networks of climate action accelerators throughout Michigan. So this one is that you see on your screen is the My Healthy Climate Community Accelerator, formerly known as the Justice 40 Community Accelerator. And here you see a photo with Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist and the cohort at our end of year celebration that we held about a month ago. This was we also had Director Ruse present, and this was a really great opportunity to reflect on the program's success over the year. The cohort, we got to hear a lot of the stories that came out of the work with the groups, including that they applied for more than 55 grants to build organizational capacity and advance, work across the needs of their communities that help advance the goals of the My Healthy Climate Plan. So you see there workforce development, energy efficiency, resiliency hubs, food security, climate action planning, and much more. And we're excited to continue this with this group starting in February of next year, and continue to build capacity in these environmental justice organizations and support their work with their communities. And here's some more on the impact of their first year together. Over $4.5 million was received in public and private grant funding through this program. There was significant workshops and training and peer learning throughout the program. So this is really not just about providing technical assistance, but creating a network that can help support each other and catalyze action across different organizations. I mentioned how many grants they were applied to, 32 connections to technical assistance providers, and many one-on-one technical assistance invested in organizational needs. So that's money that came from those one-on-one sessions that were held to really pinpoint what the individual needs of the organizations were and tailor the support to those organizations. Next up, we have the My Healthy Climate Fellows program, which the second cohort finished earlier this year. And we're starting planning for the next cohort, which will begin in January and go through the end of the year next year, with 15 organizations participating. And you can see the list of the organizations participating on the right there. We just finished applications for fellows to apply to the program. Yesterday was the closing date for that application process. Last I checked, which was yesterday afternoon, we had well over 350 applicants to these 15 slots. So it's a very competitive program that has a lot of interest, that draws people across the state as well as from other states. And we've seen that. An example of a person coming from another state to Michigan is Mary Liz, who you heard from later today. So I'm really proud to be a part of this program and excited for our third cohort next year. Here's just some little tidbits from the second cohort that we have. I encourage you to read the article that went out that featured year 2 impact, that's linked there. We had 31 hosts and organizations participate at the start of that program, and you can see some of the numbers of the impact that those folks had throughout Michigan. And then I included a call out from one of our hosts, or one of our fellows in the Detroit 2030 district, Mason, who's working on improving sustainability in Detroit. And I believe he's now part of the, oh my gosh, I didn't write it down, the name of the direct pay. Yeah, he's one of the elective pay ambassadors now. So moving on to continue doing great sustainability work in Michigan, in Detroit and beyond. Yeah, I think that's all I have for these 2 programs.
Hi, everyone. My name is Haley Neuenfeld. I am the Climate Finance and Funding Officer with the office, working a lot on the My Healthy Climate Challenge. So Challenge 1 was Solar for Savings, which was focused on the My Solar for All pilot projects. As Director Roos mentioned, those are in litigation. So this Challenge 1 is still paused. But Challenge 2 was focused on unlocking elective pay. Under the One Big Beautiful Bill, a lot of the tax credits were, the phase out was accelerated for many of the tax credits, and then beginning in 2026, there are some additional regulations for some of the tax credits as well. So unlocking elective pay is focused on helping communities and entities access these tax credits in the time that they're still available, for those that are phasing out sooner, and then also navigate some of these new restrictions. So applications were due on November 9th. We did 2 periods. So we had a concept paper phase and then an application phase. We received 22 concept papers and 10 full applications. We have $2 million for 2 to 6 awardees. We had some really great applications. They're from partners from financial institutions, nonprofits, municipalities, CBOs, and different coalitions. So we're still in the review process, but our goal is to have grant agreements signed by January 2026 and get these projects started. So really excited to provide some updates on that, hopefully at the next call. Challenge number 3, we are finalizing the scope of this, but this is focused on growing green lending. This challenge is being developed in partnership with the Michigan Climate Investment Hub. This is a public-private partnership Ben Dewicki is the director of the Climate Investment Hub, and he's been working really hard to connect us with different partners in the state and really deepen those relationships and identify the barriers to growing green lending in the state. So we're aiming to launch that in Q1 of 2026. So again, hopefully we'll be able to provide more information on that coming up, but definitely stay tuned. And then our fourth challenge is Go Big, Go Clean. And this is really focused on industrial decarbonization. And it's kind of part of our office's strategy on industrial decarbonization. We have $2 million. This can't be used for actual capital or infrastructure development. So we're focusing on feasibility and planning studies. But right now where we're at in the process is talking with industry partners and industry themselves, and then we're building this out in tandem with a larger decarbonization strategy for industry as well. So our goal is to launch this at the Michigan Healthy Climate Conference in April 2026.
All right. Hey everyone, I'm Julia Field. I'm the Deputy Chief Climate Officer here at OCE, and I'll be giving what will be our final update on the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. We've been providing updates over the last year and a half on this process. This is supported through the EPA's Climate Pollution Reduction Planning Grant. The grant Phil referenced at the beginning is the Climate Pollution Reduction Implementation Grant. Very confusing, 2 grants, different amounts of money. But we've had the planning grant for the last couple of years. It's what supported the development of the Priority Climate Action Plan. And over the last year and a half, we've developed this Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. So I'm going to give in the final update because we're submitting this to EPA by December 1st of this year. Next slide, please. So this funding really helped us do 3 main things. It helped us develop the statewide greenhouse gas inventory for the first time since 2005. It helped further engagement around the My Healthy Climate Plan, as well as further additional analysis related to emissions and projections of emissions going forward. So to start with engagement, you see on the far left, we've presented some variation of the slide a few times, but in the development of the Priority Climate Action Plan, we held 5 in-person sessions across the state. This was an exciting opportunity to get out into communities to talk about the My Healthy Climate Plan. And then as a part of the engagement around this comprehensive climate action plan, we kicked it off with an in-person meeting in Detroit focused on a collaborative planning session for equitable and just climate action to hear from environmental justice communities and organizations around priorities of theirs in implementation of the My Healthy Climate Plan. Then last fall through early winter of this year, we held virtual listening sessions for each pillar of the My Healthy Climate Plan to hear from the public some of their priorities and what they see as opportunities and barriers in implementing those pillar-specific key strategies. And then throughout this late winter, spring, and fall, we worked with the University of Michigan to do engagement meetings in person with key state of Michigan departments and other entities active in various pillars work to hear from them directly. And so all this input, some key themes are shown on the right, were integrated into the final deliverable, this comprehensive climate action plan. Some of the key themes from these in-person meetings and the virtual listening sessions was a focus on engagement and education, really highlighting the importance of education and outreach to raise awareness and to build trust, an interest in resiliency. We heard interest in integrating climate across sustainability and community development planning, as well as building greater resilience to climate impacts through our climate mitigation work. Always an interest in economic opportunities related to job creation, supporting small businesses interested in entering the green economy and reducing utility costs. And then an emphasis on thinking about upgrading outdated infrastructure through climate action, as well as increasing transparency and data access. And then also, particularly at the in-person session in Detroit, interest in supporting community health and prioritizing community health through environmental standards. Next slide, please, Jordan. So as I mentioned, one of the things we were most excited about, and we actually presented on this at the February council meeting, was this funding allowed us to develop the statewide greenhouse gas inventory. Cheyenne Ghosh on our team helped lead this work along with our consultants at Accenture. And so that was an awesome component of this whole process. Next slide, please. Oh, and I should mention, we will be developing a standalone report that we hope will be a template going forward for releasing an annual greenhouse gas inventory from this work. More on that to come. Now we can go ahead. Thank you. And then the EPA had a number of requirements for what to include in the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. And we really relied heavily on the My Healthy Climate Plan for all of those requirements. So for the goals and the interim 2030 targets, those are all pulled directly from the My Healthy Climate Plan. So you see here the 2030 interim targets from the plan, as well as obviously the ultimate goal of carbon neutrality by 2050. Next slide, please. And then we use the key strategies in the My Healthy Climate Plan, which all of you council members were key parts of creating throughout the planning process of the My Healthy Climate Plan. And from those key strategies, we developed reduction measures, which helped us better understand the emission reduction potential of the My Healthy Climate Plan. And we did some further modeling analysis that we didn't have the opportunity to do in the initial My Healthy Climate planning process. So as you can see here, the business as usual scenario is on the left, and then some modeling that shows the potential of implementing the full My Healthy Climate Plan or the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan scenario here on the right. I will note you still see maybe 30 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent as emissions, and that's because this does not show the carbon sink. If you take into account the carbon sink, I think we got down to about 7 million metric tons of emissions that still remain to be abated. And so through the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan, we list some potential additional measures under transportation, industry, and oh gosh, I think buildings that could show some further potential to drive emissions down. I'm sorry, in agriculture.
Is that 2050 at the end date?
Yes, sorry, and the end date is 2050. Yep. Next slide, please, Jordan. All right, and so we always talk about the co-benefits of climate action, and this was a way to quantify some of those co-benefits. So following that entire implementation scenario of the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan, we looked primarily at the co-pollutants listed on the far left, so SOx, NOx, PM2.5, and VOCs. So you see the base year emissions in the column after that, and then the difference between that business as usual scenario and full implementation of the CCAP in 2030, and then that final column in 2050. And you do see some significant emissions reductions for those co-pollutants. And then throughout the CCAP, we had the opportunity to talk about some of the additional more qualitative co-benefits for the various reduction measures, which always hit on environmental benefits related to air and water quality, improving public health outcomes, economic benefits, potential resilience co-benefits, as well as the opportunity to address environmental injustices. Next slide, please. All right, so what's next? We are submitting this it's due December 1st. We're on track to submit it by next Wednesday, so no one has to worry about it over the Thanksgiving holiday. I do not believe the EPA is planning to publish these online at this time, but EGLE will likely do so. In early 2026, we'll be looking to publish a standalone greenhouse gas inventory report, which again, we hope is a template for years going forward. And then we'll conclude with a final in-person session in Detroit around environmental justice and the My Healthy Climate Plan to kind of bring back some of the results of this planning process to some of the people who helped us kick off that engagement session last year. And then this grant, actually, we have funding through fall 2027. So we'll do some additional climate planning and analysis, additional engagements. We're actually currently working with the University of Michigan with Professor Sam Stokler, one of our council members, on a cost and funding analysis with a capstone team there. And then finally, there's a status report due to the EPA when the grant concludes in fall 2027. I'll just mention some of the ideas we have for some of the additional kind of planning and analysis funds. And also preempt the question that our projections did not include major, like significant load growth specifically from data centers. This has been a 1.5-year process, and we didn't have the time, nor I I don't think there's a lot of work going on right now to try to project some of those potential emissions. So we may look further at that. And I think in general, we are interested in trying to understand responsible development around data centers that through a framework of supporting the My Healthy Climate Plan goals. And we see further potential generally in the industrial space. So Eagle's Material Management Division has some forthcoming roadmaps focused on buildings and transportation, electrification, and decarbonization. So in the next year, we see some space for the Office of Climate and Energy specifically to look at the industrial sector. Let's see, I think that's all from me. Anything to add, Alison? All right. Oh, and a workforce analysis coming forward from Perry as well. University of Massachusetts. Sorry, a long acronym. Political Economic Research Institute. Okay. Great. With that, over to you, Alessandra.
Great. And these slides there's only 2 slides. It'll take a few minutes, but then I want to make sure we have time for questions and discussion. But this time of year affords us the opportunity through the drafting of the annual report to look at all the work departments across the state have been doing to implement the My Healthy Climate Plan, and then also celebrate the work that Eagle does to embed the My Healthy Climate Plan across divisions and all of our programs. So we learned through our ongoing updates from the State Energy Office within our Materials Management Division about some really great progress with the Michigan Home Energy Rebates Program. And so wanted to take the opportunity to share the updates with the council and also sort of tee up a preview of what we think will be a really sort of generative, not just discussion, but opportunity to think about some of the interactions between the Office of Climate and Energy and the Energy Office as the Energy Office implements its programs in the new year. So all that to say, stay tuned, and we're excited to invite MMD to one of our council meetings in 2026. So with that, next slide, please. This is a snapshot of where the $210 million funding for the Michigan Home Energy Rebates Program is currently allocated across the Home Efficiency Rebates Program and the Home Electrification and Appliance Rebates Program. Both ultimately designed to ensure more Michiganders have access to home efficiency, electrification opportunities, with the understanding that there's a lot of collaboration across state government to get us here, but also with our private partners and collaborators. So you can see so far there have been almost 10,000 applications received, of which over 7,000, almost 8,000 were approved, and there's a roughly even split between the home efficiency rebates and the home electrification and appliance rebates programs. And the sort of the funnel of projects is what the bar graph shows. So from projects submitted, underway or incomplete, and then ultimately from the applications, how many have also been rejected. So a learning curve, but a great one, because I think this, again, and why we're pointing this out is that it really opens the door to a lot of discussion, both in terms of implementation, but to Julia's point earlier, helps us really think about where are some of the opportunities around planning and affordability when it comes to home energy use that we might want to investigate further. But I think one of the key takeaways, and I spoke to Julie Stavelin, who runs this program and the Energy Office, is that there is a really big opportunity here to recruit more contractors to the program. So you can see here so far there are almost 250 approved MyHer contractors. This data is current as of the beginning of November, and she's looking for about 700. So I think this, and I'm so glad we have the focus on workforce development for part of our meeting today. And we also saw from our council survey results that there's interest in sort of exploring this topic further, but it's definitely a theme that we wanted to make sure we elevated in providing the update to MyHer. So really, really exciting progress wanted to share. Next slide, please. And then also from our Energy Office, our Materials Management Division, with an opportunity for further engagement through Julie Staveland is a total $4 million grant to promote consumer battery recycling within the state. The grant covers efforts ranging from education and outreach to developing the infrastructure to enable collection of consumer batteries and recycling, and then ultimately focusing on how to develop a circular economy behind battery minerals. So this is, again, when you think about all the avenues for implementation of the My Healthy Climate Plan and how the My Healthy Climate Plan can touch virtually every aspect and does touch every aspect of our state economy. This is, again, just one of those opportunities that's emerging, and that, again, maybe a call for or an invitation to engage further is that this particular effort is also looking to stand up a state advisory group to determine how we might develop the infrastructure for battery recycling. And you can see too how the themes from this carry over into other aspects of clean energy infrastructure, materials and products such as EV batteries or battery energy, stationary energy storage. So again, a quick focus on how the My Healthy Climate Plan is being implemented across Eagle and specifically through our energy office. And so with that, I think we can go to the next slide, which is really just a call for questions or comments. And as we wait for those, I just want to remind everyone that our conference, My Healthy Climate Conference, is April 21st. I think it came up, so I'm putting a date to the.
I'll put a link in the chat.
Yeah.
Looks like Lana might have a question.
Yeah, Lana, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I don't have to go first, but I'll go. I'm wondering, first of all, congratulations. There's just amazing work that's been done and is being done, and it's really important. But I see the chance of like building a whole city on the edge of a tsunami, and the tsunami is, you can see it coming, but no one's decided how they can really respond. And the tsunami, of course, are the data centers. And just as I understand it, the one proposed in Saline, Michigan, one of many, but the biggest, I think, would be 25% of an additional 25% demand for DTE. So I mean, these are huge. So my question is, what can Eagle or anybody else related to this council do to be part of the discussion? I know there's even a discussion whether there'll be transparency before the PSC. I don't know what's appropriate or possible for Eagle to, or this commission to be doing before these things are fait accompli and all that you've said and done and accomplished is washed away. Well, not entirely washed away, but severely.
Want me to do this, sir?
I want to tee it up and I can do it.
Okay,
I'll just start with an easy question.
Yeah, that's an easy one. We all have that figured out. That's a good thing. Appreciate it, Lana. I'll give maybe a little bit more of the layman's version of this, and then Allie can go a little deeper on if she chooses on the energy question. I think the general feeling here is we, of course, welcome the idea of being on the technological edge and participating in industries. This is obviously a big one that is happening whether we want it or not. And these are going to be located across the country, already are. I think the challenge that I think a lot of us have felt is that it's happening so quickly before, it feels like we've got everything figured out. I know last fall last year, I don't remember exactly when it was, but when the tax incentive legislation came out, that came on pretty suddenly. And I think because there were data centers who wanted to come to the area And so it forced a lot of very quick decisions on how to make that work, how to do something that would be competitive, would keep Michigan in the game, but would have some important protections. And I think what I'd say is that stepping back from it, because that all happened really quickly. You know, we're like adding language in and trying to include protections as we go, both on the water and the energy side, is that looking back on it right now, it's quite a bit more protection than most other states. I believe that's still true. And we're doing a pretty, Ale and Ann Larson and others in Eagle and others in state government have been working on really trying to get a comprehensive picture of what's going on in other states and where there might be any gaps in our own regulatory program and how we need to be thinking about this going forward. But so stepping back from that, I'm going to talk more comprehensively here, and I'm just saying that on the water side, we are in a significantly better place than I thought we would be, as I understood it, around the time this legislation was initially introduced. And that's because of the key thing that was added to the tax incentive package, the requiring hooking, to get the tax incentive, you have to hook up to municipal water utilities. We regulate that at Eagle. We have a lot of control over it. We know if there's a problem pretty quickly and we can do things about it. And even if somebody didn't want the tax incentive, but they wanted to do a water withdrawal from a well, groundwater directly, they need a permit if the amount of water is above a certain level. And of course, most of the bigger, the current generation of data centers are recircling water for cooling. So the actual water usage isn't anything like we feared it would be in most cases. Energy side, MPSC is the regulatory body on that. What I would say, we have a couple of areas of control there, and I don't think Chair Scripps is on here, but if he or anybody from MPSC is on here, I'll let them speak. And Ali, as a former commissioner, has a sense of it. But through the utility IRP process, the utilities are still required to have plans that are consistent with the energy package of laws that were passed in 2023. And then with specific, when there's a specific data center, and I think it's of a certain size, like DTE with the Selene, and you saw hearings and discussions about consumers that came out a couple of weeks ago. I think they've done, as a not totally impartial observer, I think they've done a really good job of looking at the tough questions here, which are affordability, stranded assets. How do we know we're going to gear up a bunch of energy production, forget about where it comes from, and then you're going to leave the state? So having long-term contracts required, and long-term, and also ensuring that these don't get passed on to ratepayers. So you'll see that's in the Selene situation. I haven't seen their filing on it, but that's what is in the filing, as I understand it, as that it'll actually reduce ratepayer costs. In terms of broader capacity and where does that energy come from, I don't know all the details on the Selene one or on all of these, but I think that's being looked at carefully in light of the My Healthy Climate Plan and with doing things that would mitigate impacts. Use of battery storage. I think I'm not being Pollyanna-ish at all, because this is a really challenging thing, but I think if we do this smart, it'll help accelerate adoption of renewables and battery storage, because you have a new data center, you can't build a gas plant, or you can't fire up an old coal plant in that moment. The thing you can do in that moment is battery storage and renewables, and that's the cheapest option as well. So I think we have to keep an eye on this. We have to monitor it going forward. We have to make sure that we have the right regimen going forward. And a lot of us are looking at that, and also trying not to stay in our little silos. We're regulating here in Eagle wetlands and water usage, and MPSC is energy. But we try to connect with each other, and I think we could do a better job and are trying to do a better job of explaining the big picture to folks. Ale, I filibustered there for a long time.
No.
There. Do you have any on the energy side of it, particularly anything you want to add?
No, I think you pointed out I think you pointed out all the things that that at least from the Office of Climate and Energy that we try to make sure we're communicating, which is these roles and responsibilities across state government to either regulate, but also ensure that the proliferation of data centers happens in a way that's responsible. And ultimately how we've been framing it at OCE is that that communities can derive and will derive benefit from it. So if it's ensuring alignment with our clean energy laws, not just goals, but laws, and ultimately our My Healthy Climate Plan targets, that we also want to make sure that there's energy affordability and equity associated with that. Julia mentioned earlier, we're thinking big picture about industrial decarbonization and the strategy through which we can encourage the decarbonization of our industrial sector. Along with that comes how do we mitigate or consider large load or energy intensive end user consumption demand. So data centers fit squarely under that too. How are we through Eagle informing, we have an advisory opinion that we provide with the integrated resource planning process, but how do we collaborate, to Director Russo's point, on MPSC cases, proceedings, and ultimately, how do we also leverage our know-how from siting? Because that's what we are rapidly learning and also leading on how we develop renewable energy projects in the state. And I think there's just really great overlap between what the discussions, the work behind renewable energy siting, and how we carry over those lessons to data centers. I think from OCE's small world in this big universe of data centers, I think we see our role in ensuring that these conversations, these convenings happen in such a way that there is interface between and ultimately something that we would like to that we're striving towards, between the hyperscalers, communities, government. How do we make sure we're optimizing the outcomes and holding these decision makers along the way accountable, including ourselves, which you reflected well, because we are trying to look at things holistically rather than just kind of sticking to our own silos. So I feel like that was a lot of exposition, but I think the bottom line is we can leverage the things that we are actively doing with renewable energy and in our goal to catalyze the energy transition in really tangible ways, and that as OCE, we lead with what's the benefit to community in the development of data centers. So we were anticipating this question, but we just, as we're thinking through our roadmap or our framework for this, I think, again, another call for ideas or input is, from the council, and how we can, communicate these views.
Great question. More to come in 2026, I'm sure. All right, so in the interest of time, if anyone else had questions, we have time at the end for additional questions. So I'm going to move ahead. So we're changing up our typical kind of highlight on a state of Michigan guest speaker to feature a council member, Mary Liz Estrada. As already mentioned, Mary Liz is a former My Healthy Climate Fellow from our second cohort that just concluded, and she's actually continued on at her host site, the Michigan AFL-CIO Workforce Development Institute, as a climate and energy jobs liaison. And as previously mentioned, our newest council member, she started in August. So she's here today to present on the Workforce Development Institute's Trades of Today and Tomorrow trailer. Over to you, Mary Liz.
Thank you so much. I want to make sure that everybody can hear me good. I'm actually at the My Career Quest in Novi. So I had to slip away and find a little spot. So if there's any delays on my end, visually or auditory, just let me know, please. Yeah, I'm excited to share more with you all today about the Trades of Today and Tomorrow trailer. But first, I actually wanted to get into a little bit of a background into me, since I don't feel like I've maybe fully introduced myself in the past. So I'm originally from Florida. I actually moved here about a year ago, and I really was seeking a home that had minimal climate impacts. And as many of you know, Florida is really ground zero for a lot of serious climate impacts when it comes to hurricanes or sea level rise, extreme heat. And so in my mind, I was thinking I really need to move somewhere where it is both safer and also there are policies being advanced to make the grid and the infrastructure more resilient. And also the affordability as well. Like I have aspirations to own a home one day, and that would take a lot longer in Florida. So another thing is that I did go to the University of South Florida, where I received my master's in global sustainability. To give you all a little bit of background into some of the work that I've done, I worked with the city of Tampa on their climate action and equity plan, where I engaged underserved communities and in getting them involved in how climate legislation was advanced locally. And I've also been involved with the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council on their disaster resiliency plan, which involved private stakeholders, NGOs, the public, as well as, you know, state and local governments. So yeah, I'm really happy to get into sort of what WDI is advancing in terms of our trailer. So if you could go to the next slide. So the need, why did we decide to invest in these trailers? Well, so just to give you all a little bit of a background, we are investing in two different trailers. The one that I'm going to be talking about today is the Trades of Today and Tomorrow trailer. The other one is our Apprenticeship Readiness trailer, which has sort of less of a green theme and really covers all of the construction trades. And so one of the things that we noticed is that there's obviously been major announcements in infrastructure investments across the state. We also know that there's a silver tsunami coming our way, which is expected to retire tens of thousands of Michiganders over the next 5 to 10 years. We also want to show young people that you don't have to go into college debt to make a livable wage, which is why we're sort of promoting this apprenticeship pathway, which offers the earn while you learn model. And then additionally, I think there's just kind of a public impression that working in a skilled trade isn't going to make you enough money or isn't going to be a substantial livelihood, but that couldn't be further from the truth. So we'll go to the next slide. And so I won't be reading off all of these investments that were recently announced, but as you can see, there's going to be some major projects coming up in Michigan, and there's already some that are on their way to being built. So, you know, we're going to have a lot of investments in roads and bridges and public transit. We're also going to see water infrastructure and lead line replacement investments. It looks like local infrastructure investments and workforce development investments. And I think there at the bottom it mentioned the Renew Michigan program, which, you know, invests in brownfield redevelopment, solid waste management, recycling and sustainability projects. And these are all investments that are going to need skilled labor. And so we need to start preparing that and building that workforce. If you could go to the next slide. And so back in May, Leo actually released their Michigan statewide infrastructure workforce plan, which outlines some pretty significant job projections. We saw that clean energy and power was one of the top job creators, although given recent cuts on the Solar for All, I wonder if this might be adjusted a bit. However, I think we should still chug along and, you know, sort of act as though those are the jobs that we want to invest in and that are going to be invested in. Then we also saw roads and bridges, broadband expansion, and then some of these others that that kind of stood out to me because we work alongside our trade partners to funnel pre-apprentices into apprenticeships. So if we could go to the next slide. And so another thing that I wanted to just really quickly uplift is that these trades and more are all involved in advancing green infrastructure. I think, the utility workers and electrical workers are some of the more obvious ones involved in making our grid more resilient and hardy, as well as transitioning to solar or wind. But iron workers actually have a big hand in constructing and putting together wind farms. We also know that the laborers union and operating engineers have a big hand in not only renewable energy projects, but also water infrastructure projects, and of course our roads. And there was one other one that I wanted to mention. The boiler makers actually have the potential to be a part of when green hydrogen sort of comes into more commonly used, they will hopefully have a hand in implementing green hydrogen systems into our grid / transportation. So wanted to uplift that. In addition, of course, the heat and frost insulators are going to be making our buildings more resilient and more weatherized and efficient. And the United Auto Workers will have a very key part in, making sure we have more EVs on the road. So we'll go to the next slide. And so actually getting into what the vision is of the Trades of Today and Tomorrow trailer. So essentially, the whole purpose is to serve primarily students across the state of Michigan. We hope to target 5th through 12th graders in underrepresented communities. And we want to do this through having this trailer, which will hopefully uplift careers in the trades that relate to construction, renewable energy, battery EV manufacturing, water infrastructure, and other roles that, again, advance really the green future that we're looking towards. And some of the things that will be included is we actually want to ensure that we talk about what is an apprentice, what is a journey worker, what are the wages that you might expect to see. And we also want to include some of the history of Michigan industry and how that industry is evolving, transitioning, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to the next couple of slides, I'm going to kind of walk through what you're seeing here. So we're working with a company called CSG, which is Creative Solutions Group. And they have built these visual renderings for us to kind of walk through. We're still in the sort of creative, planning process, but we are really excited to get plans solidified very, very soon. So history, that is where we want to talk about. We definitely want to incorporate mining history. We want to talk about the automobile labor history, and sort of like the shared vision of the future in where we're going with renewable energy, EV and battery manufacturing and that sort of thing. And then in this next part, it says water infrastructure. And what we hope to uplift with that section is all of the trades involved in lead line replacement, wastewater treatment plants, water treatment plants, and anything just water infrastructure related. And we want to talk about how obviously we want to transition away from these lead pipes because it's causing a health risk. In addition, we also want to talk about, what is the process for how we get water to our sinks or our baths or our toilets and whatnot, and where does it go, right? So we want to kind of walk through that process for young people. And then this other section is our wind turbine technology. section where we want to have VR headsets where people can put on the VR headsets and actually see what it's like to be either maintaining or fixing something on that height or on that level that wind turbine technicians might be at. And then there's a little screen over there that we want to uplift. Where are wind turbines currently, and where is the most optimal space for wind turbines in the future? So we want to try to make it interactive for young people and give them a really good sense of what those jobs look like. So let's go to the next slide. And then with this energy grid section, I think we ended up changing the name to grid infrastructure, if I'm not mistaken. But here we want to highlight trade careers relating to energy, relating to broadband and water infrastructure, and how those careers sort of overlap. And then the buildings of the future section, here we want to have, we've actually been doing a ton of interviews across the state in all of the trades. And we want to feature those interviews here so that way young people can actually hear from workers in the field. And yeah, hear what their day-to-day is like and hear, you know, have advice on what they should do if they're wanting to pursue that career. And then there's some little displays of buildings. And an idea that we had originally was to possibly reach out to architectural students in the state. Maybe they could build us some type of sustainable city display. I think we might be somewhat transitioning away from that, but we still want to have some type of building displays. And I think we also want to incorporate sustainable building materials. So if folks have ideas for that, we are totally open to that, because some of the things that I think of are mass timber or maybe sustainable, sustainably made steel or something of that nature. So yeah, wanting to uplift that sustainable buildings are the future, and we're going to have more energy efficiency. They're going to hopefully look cool, but also we need individuals who are going to build that future. So if you go to the next slide. And just to uplift, we actually had a art competition to engage some young people across the state with, letting them know that this trailer was going to hopefully be coming to a school near them. And so, yeah, we had high schoolers, 9th through 12th grade, create and submit a mural wrap design. This ended up being our winning submission, and we did have some scholarships amounting to $2,500 and $5,000. And so, yeah, we really appreciated how much work a lot of them put into these submissions. And if we go to the next slide. So wanting to uplift how our trades trailer overlaps with Michigan's goal in several departments. So Leo, with that Michigan statewide infrastructure workforce plan that I mentioned earlier, had several goals. These were two that we kind of outlined that had some major overlap with wanting to train 5,000 new infrastructure workers by 2030, and then also wanting to increase sort of like the K through 12 career awareness to ensure that people know that this is a career pathway. If we can go to the next slide. And so, yeah, this kind of just further lays out some of the overlap between Leo's goals and WDI's goals. As you can see, Leo, wants to increase CTE programs, introduce more infrastructure topics into the curriculum, which is something we're really interested in. Increase pre-apprenticeships, have construction career days, infrastructure camps, that sort of thing, hopefully mentoring. And how that overlaps with us is we, hope to be uplifting that throughout our sort of trades trailer tour. And we also want to be able to bring STEAM activities to the classroom. And these STEAM activities, the intention is really for them to learn not only, science, art, math, whatnot, but also have that activity connect directly with a trade. So they're kind of learning about both a trade and they're learning, hopefully something that overlaps with something that they're learning in their classroom. And then we are also having, we're partnering with Slipstream, which I will drop more information if people are interested in knowing more about them in the UP. They are wanting to uplift green energy efficiency, renewable energy trade careers. And so we hopefully will be partnering with them and UPCO. I'm thinking it's definitely happening in 2026. But we wanted to share that with you all so that way, if folks are interested in following up about that. And then we also want to host summer STEAM camps, which we actually did get to host one earlier this year, which I will mention in a later slide. But yeah, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. And then within the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. So these were, I didn't get too specific in the breakdown of the goals, but WDI overlaps in many of the Michigan Healthy Climate goals through advancing our MyWIT program, Access for All. I think that our trades for today and tomorrow trailer does advance environmental justice, pursuing a just transition. The hope is that these trade careers also will hopefully repair and decarbonize buildings, make them more energy efficient. And we also hope to funnel folks into the EV manufacturing industry, as well as renewable energy through cleaning the electric grid. If we can go to the next slide. And so just to give you all a little background into some of our STEAM activities, we plan, like I mentioned earlier, we plan on having a wide range of STEAM activities, sort of like a curriculum catalog for schools and teachers to pick from, to have it better connect to their classwork. And so some of the things that we plan on doing, we have this operating engineering activity where they can actually play with this remote controlled front loader. We also would love to have students participate in actually building a sustainable city. As you can see in this picture right here, cutting out things, measuring things, actually setting up little renewable energy panels and hopefully lighting up a city as well. And then we also have a bridge activity, and these are just a couple of examples of what we'll be doing, but we're really excited to bring this to schools. So if we could go to the next slide. And so this was the STEAM camp we did at Avalon Village earlier this year. We had a multitude of activities that we did with these young men. And actually what was funny is we were planning on the age range to be, I think we thought it was going to be middle school. They all were either seniors in high school or basically 18. But we still kept with it and they actually had a lot of fun. We built this little resource library where they got to tile it and paint it. We also did an electrical circuit activity, a solar activity, the operating engineers activity that I just mentioned. So they got a little bit of range and exposure to some different career paths they could take. If you want, you can play that. I was going to say, hopefully it works, but if not, it's okay.
We might have issues with sound.
That's okay if it doesn't have sound. It's still a cool video. Awesome. Yeah, so we had a great time with those young men, and we hope to do more in the future. So transitioning and wrapping up my presentation, if we could go to the next slide, and just to give you all an update of where we are right now. So our intention is to launch both of our trailers by fall of 2026 officially. Those trailers could be done as early as summer of 2026. And between now and then, our real goal is to identify and build relationships with guidance counselors, teachers, superintendents, after school partners, in order to hopefully start to garner their attention and also have them maybe sign up in advance of, let's get them down on the schedule. Another thing that we want to do is we plan on having a fee for service model, and we're still identifying that cost, but essentially what we want to do with that is for the schools that can afford more, we want them to sort of pick up that slack on that end. And then for the schools that maybe aren't able to invest in as much, we do want to seek sponsorships and grants to hopefully cover those folks, because we do want this to still reach rural and underserved communities. And so, yeah, currently we're looking for funding, we're seeking sponsorships, and I'm also working a lot on the detailed STEAM curriculum that can be brought into classrooms. And we will more than likely in 2026 be able to actually demo these activities. And so if anybody has contacts or resources, I am happy to accept those. And, again, we're taking this across the state. So no places off limits. We do want to try to create a schedule to where, we won't be going to the UP in December or in winter, but we will try to schedule them maybe August, September, and, try to keep each region in Michigan sort of broken down into different times of the year, if that makes sense. So that's our plan. And that actually concludes my presentation. And the next slide is my contact information. So if anyone is wanting to follow up about this or share ideas, I'm an open book and I welcome it. So yeah, and I'll go ahead and I don't know if questions are held to the end, but feel free to also drop questions in the chat. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mary Liz. I think we have time for maybe one or two questions from council members now, if there are any questions in the room.
This is, let me go on camera. Sorry, this is Jim Harrison. So this is more of a comment than a question. I just have to say how excited I am about this, both as someone within the energy industry as well as a council member. The the 2024, I think it was, U.S. Energy and Employment Report indicated that like over 3/4 of energy employers have a hard time hiring people. And some of the biggest issues for that is that young people don't know the kinds of jobs that are available to them in both skilled trades as well as from my viewpoint in the energy sector. And outreach is place-based outreach is incredibly helpful. This lines with a lot of recommendations that had been made to the energy secretary in the last administration as well, the current administration, frankly, as well, in relation to making sure that teachers have curriculum that they can utilize and that students can actually see things and put their hands on things to experience it. So I just really say that this is really a wonderful idea.
Thank you, Jim. And also, of course, thank you for coordinating that interview with your renewable energy specialist last week. That was wonderful. So
yeah, absolutely. We should talk about water treatment as well and wastewater at some point.
All right, one last comment or question from the council? All right, hearing none. Thank you so much, Mary Liz. That was a really excellent presentation, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about the success of the program in 2026. All right, next up, we have Adam Wygant, who's Director of Eagle's Geologic Resources Management Division. He's here to present on Eagle's effort to plug orphan wells. So in 2022, Eagle, the Geologic Resources Management Division, utilized funds awarded under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act to provide additional assistance for the Eagle Orphan Well program. And this has been really successful. So we're excited to feature Adam and his division's work. And just to make the direct connection to the My Healthy Climate Plan and why this matters as a climate action is orphan wells are a major source of methane gas emissions, and methane is a greenhouse gas with over 25 times, it's over 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide over a 100-year period. So this is a really important work and really matters to the overall success of our My Healthy Climate Plan. So over to you, Adam.
Thank you all. Could I have the next slide, please? Just like to level set first with this slide to the point that see here, to the point that there's been over 60,000 wells drilled in Michigan for a variety of reasons, from oil and gas exploration, gas storage, disposal, mineral wells. And these are deep constructed wells that are targeting to either produce something of value in our deep, bold geology, or dispose of something in a zone that you can sequester and get rid of something away from the biosphere and away from our fresh water. Next slide. So in Michigan, our orphan well program sort of formally began in 1996, and since that time we've plugged about 400 wells. We receive $1 million a year minimum, or 2% of the gross value of oil and gas, whichever is largest. And historically, we have received some other funding sources. To use orphan well funds, we have to have an owner or operator that's unknown. All of the owners or operators must be insolvent, or there must be imminent threat to public health and safety, and operators just not stepping up, and we have to step in those shoes. Next slide. Some of the orphan well challenges, and in that previous slide was an example of a 1870s vintage well that was discovered in Muskegon when they were building the convention center between the L.C. Walker Arena and a hotel. You know, some of these wells go back to the 1800s when a lumber baron would drill a well like this to produce brine and they would use their slab wood to boil it off. Because salt was a very valuable commodity, and they would also get creosote, and they may get some oil. Some of the orphan well challenges we run into in plugging these old wells are access, and you can see here sometimes we have to get very creative in getting into floodplains or wetland areas with matting. It wasn't uncommon for wells to be abandoned back in the day by plugging down, literally stuffing pine trees in a hole. Ropes, clothing, leather gloves, metal. Those can present a variety of challenges as obstructions as we try to get to the bottom of these holes and then properly plug them on the way up. Next slide. So our orphan well program maintains the orphan well list. We report annually to the legislature what that list is. We score these wells, prioritize them, we plan our annual work, and we contract them, provide all the project management, and then field oversight of these projects. Next slide. In around 2015, we had whittled our orphan well list down to about 21 wells, and of these 60,000, I think it's important that you understand that, like when I came 14 years ago, we were babysitting about 21,000 wells in this category, and we now are around 15,000. We've seen about 25% of our wells plugged in that 14-year time since I came back to the agency. Not of my doing, but operators just plugging wells out that are not economic, and we kind of keep pressure on companies to do so. When they're done using them, get rid of them. Our orphan well program had gotten down to about 21 wells in 2015, but low oil prices in that 2015 to 2017 range. And again, 2020 saw low commodity prices where some of these companies tip over, become insolvent. And then we also had in that 2017 to 2020 range, you'll see we took several operators, about a dozen operators, to task that we didn't feel like they were meeting their obligations, and we launched escalated enforcement actions with them. Unfortunately, when you do that, sometimes it does result in findings of insolvency, judgment of insolvency, and the orphan well program has to step in. For the first time, we also saw some Antrim operators that dumped a lot of Antrim wells. Those are shallow wells, but so they can be plugged relatively inexpensively, but there is several wells there. So that sets the scene for my talk. Next slide. Probably as early as the mid 2000s, and then again in earnest around 2018, through the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission, states were clamoring, saying that they needed money for orphan well funding, and the feds should consider that. They worked with a couple primary sponsors in North Dakota and New Mexico to create bipartisan support for what was called the Regrow Act, and then it was ultimately included in the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, and created several funding opportunities for us, because obviously when you get a large number of wells built up on your list, $1 million a year doesn't get you very far on that list. So we were very excited to see the IIJA passed, and you see here we were awarded $25 million in what was called an initial grant that was meant to get jobs going and for states to plug wells very quickly. Separately, we a non-competitive, we received a $5.8 million formula grant, and then there's also performance grants out there in the form of regulatory improvement and matching funds. We did apply for and receive our first matching grant for $10 million, $5 million state and $5 million fed, and we're about to apply for a second round of that funding. And then finally, there will be some regulatory improvement grants for legislative or statutory improvements we've made over the past decade that should net us possibly up to $40 million additional for this program. Next slide. So again, this slide just kind of reiterates what I just said. We have received to date $25 million initial grant, which is pretty much spent over the last 3 years. Formula grant, we've started spending, and we'll be continuing on, probably have that spent this year. And then we'll begin working on this $10 million grant, and we have funding built up, $10 million of annual investment that the legislature and governor gave us to go towards $10 million federal money. So we'll be applying for a $20 million award, probably December-ish here. And then finally, those are the regulatory improvement grants that we think we may be able to get 2 of those in the future. We have a website. Next slide. We have a website that kind of shows the progress. If you're curious, you can go to our Geologic Resources Management Division, Orphan Wells. If you plug that in, you'll eventually find the dashboard here, which is part of the requirement of our federal IIJA funding that just allows people to track where orphan wells exist, how the progress is that we're being made through this. We're currently about 52% of the way through the wells that we wanted to plug to get down to 0. You do continue to receive some new orphan wells through insolvencies or those kind of things, but we are on track to significantly knock that down. We had some challenges with the Department of Interior and getting projects cleared in the last administration. Some of that is improved under this administration, but unfortunately, we also have some challenges with the Department of Labor and getting wage determinations and complying with Davis-Bacon. That's the negative side. Positive side is we're making meaningful progress on plugging these wells. We are mitigating. We measure whether or not the well is leaking ahead of time, and then if it is leaking, we quantify that, and then we verify that it's not leaking after that. So I welcome you to kind of get online and play around with this, and you can see where wells might exist in your area of interest. Next slide. I mentioned our pre and post plugging methane measurement. And really what we found is that orphan wells in Michigan are not leaking a substantial amount. I know Julia highlighted that in the introduction. I felt all along that in Michigan, this program was more of a groundwater protection program than methane or a climate related program. But be that as it may, there's benefit obviously in both sides, but a properly plugged well not only ends any potential emission of these natural gases, but it also protects our aquifers. So we've done a total of about 358 measurements. We've found that 62 leaks, so about 17% of the wells in our experience do have some sort of leak. The total leaking of all these wells is 6,000 grams per hour. To put that into context, the EPA super emitter program is about 100,000 grams per hour. So you can think of that like when a natural gas transmission company blows down a big line, those show up as natural gas super emitters. So we have currently remediated 3,700 grams per hour of methane leaks that were discovered. We have about 2,300 grams per hour left to go. Interesting in the data, our largest leak was 3,600. So I think pretty much half of what we discovered in all of those wells. The second was 742. So it gives you a context that those two wells are a bit of an anomaly in the sense that they are truly a larger leaker. So our total average is about 97 grams per hour. And when you back out the two largest, you get about 28 grams per hour as a context of what we think your average orphan well may be leaking of the 17% that are leaking. So we've still got 2,300 to go after. Next slide. I just note Van Single wells were pretty interesting. We had plugged a couple decades ago some wells that were in gravel pits, orphan wells. These are super challenging projects, but we had two in the Grand Rapids area, Ottawa County, that were in former gravel pits. Sometimes people come and they do build gravel pits in areas that used to have wells, and occasionally they're disturbed or they weren't plugged well enough in the originally, like with heavy mud, and they begin to leak. So this was a successful project for us, but very expensive. As you notice in the upper left, we had to build coffer dam access point to work from barge. We had to take cement operations, everything out onto the water, and then ultimately restore the shoreline in the Ottawa County Park. Next slide. This process has given us some unique opportunities to work with the Department of Interior, a group that we had worked with a ton. They were the group that was to administer the Orphan Well program. Got an opportunity here to meet with Secretary Haviland a couple times here in the state and tour with some of the top Department of Interior officials. So it was a good relationship, has been and continues to be with our federal partners, other than some of the challenges that I've already noted. Next slide. I would end just to give you an idea. Orphan wells are occasionally an issue, and we still are babysitting 15,000 wells out there. So it was important for our group to continue on what I like to call active well management, where we're diligent as a regulatory agency in ensuring that companies are proactive and diligent. So we maintain tracking. We started tracking in about 2018. In this administration, several metrics. Just for your awareness, I took the director job just as Governor Granholm was taking her job. So I was a young division director here, and in talking with my management, it was felt that tracking of metrics is very important to understand where you've been, where you're going, and what's happening. So around this active well management, there are several metrics that I track to understand what might be going on in the oil patch. And one of the big things that we look at is what's the percentage of wells that are being used for their intended purpose. Wells can be shut in for a year and they can receive temporary abandonment status, but we've felt informally that to limit future plugging liability, orphan well liability, we want to keep companies to 10% or less. So in 2024, I issued Supervisor Wells Instruction 1-24, which substantially changed our blanket bond requirements on companies moving forward, and then also put the standard out for our staff to meet with oil companies on an annual basis to go over their compliance issues, their plugging, their shut-in and TA statuses, and to put companies on paths to get under that 10%. Even when they're at 10%, some companies might be at 6%. That doesn't mean they don't plug any, but certainly as a statewide goal, and part of our Vision 27 is to statewide get these wells under 10%. So companies individually and then also statewide. And in the first year of pushing on that, since we worked with Director Roos's Vision 27, we've moved that metric from about 14.6. This data shows higher than that, but we benchmarked this a year ago at about 14.6, and I believe we're ending this year of 2025 at 13.7. So just wanted to give you a glimpse of what we're doing alongside of the plugging work too. That's kind of what I prepared for you today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam. We have time for a few questions from the council. Yeah, Sam?
Thanks. Hi, Adam. Thanks for that presentation. Just want to confirm. So most of the time, it seems like when when there's funding earned for a given decarbonization task, it's like just a start. But it sounds like this is like much better funded, over the last 5 years than certainly it was before. But then maybe also than other problems we're trying to solve. So I know like there's going to keep being orphan wells, but can you just confirm your sense of like, is there like a lot more money needed for this? Or are we like, really going to get this problem fully under control with all the money that's come in the last few years? Thanks.
Well, I think Michigan's in really a lot better shape than other states in the sense that we've had an active regulatory program since the 1920s. And as I showed, we had our orphan well plugging list down to category 1s are kind of your leakers, and category 2 are other wells, orphan wells. We had that list down to about 20 wells, which is outstanding. There's some states that have on the order of hundreds of thousands of these wells, and they don't even know where they're at. We know where our wells are. It's very rare, but every couple, 2-3 years, we might have one show up that we were not aware of, but it is really, really rare. Like that one in Muskegon is an 1870s well. And when they told us we had a well there, I was like, well, why did they hit it? It's right on our GeoWebface map. We've known it's there. It's plotted exactly where this project is. But so we're on track to not only in the next couple of years tackle these 500 wells. We're 52% of the way through that, and we'd like to get through that by 2027. But we have also about 80 category 3 sites, which are contaminated sites. So we want to transition from the plugging work and into cleaning up some of these legacy contamination sites. And like I said, there's these additional pots of money that should be available till about 2033. So even though this was one-time money kind of emanating out of IIJ in 2021, it really has ended up more of like a decade-long project for us. And that's why we're also, in addition to that work, trying to limit future plugging liability to continue while companies are making money and they're able to take care of these responsibilities as we go and not kick the can down the road.
Great. Any other questions or comments from the council? Yeah, go for it, Sam. You got time.
It's a different question. It's not a follow-up. It's a very interesting subject. Adam, you suggested you showed some data on like grams per hour of leaking methane, I think, and suggested that you see this policy as this cleanup program as more of a maybe a groundwater protection program than greenhouse gas emissions reduction. What little I know about methane includes that it's a much more potent greenhouse gas than CO2. So I would have thought that this is, I might have thought in my ignorance that this is really powerful decarbonization activity. But I don't really know scales, especially grams per hour. It looks like I'm seeing average leak per week leaking well with all leaks 0.936 tons per year. Is that like 1 ton of methane? And how does that, do you know anything about how that compares to like to CO2? Because it sounds still pretty small. Like my logic does not matter here.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. I mean, you take those 2 anomalous wells out of there, out of 400 some wells, we've found that 17% leak, and minus those 2 wells, you're looking at about a 1/4 ton a year. So for all of those wells, and I had asked our one of our air quality managers, like, can you put that into context for me? Is that a big deal? And he was kind of like, not really. It's relatively small, which is what I thought too. But it goes to geology too, right? Like, so when you hear national statements on that, it can really vary based on the geology. Like, some of these formations have very low gas to oil ratios, so they can sit there and literally not have any gas pressure. It may have been depleted a long time ago or just not exist. The other thing is these wells are non-operational. So I'm encouraged by these low numbers. I'll take them. Maybe in a year or so, you'll have me here talking about our methane emission reduction program. That's under the IRA. That's another project that we're doing where we are going to plug marginal oil and gas wells around the state. It's a smaller program. We received $5 million, and we're offering like $100,000 grants for companies to plug presently operating wells. And we just closed our nomination period for that, and we did have over 100 wells nominated, and we're only going to be able to plug probably 30 to 50 wells under that program. But we are going to do, as part of that, we're going to do a $500,000 methane study on marginal conventional wells that are operating, that I think is going to be one of the better studies in the US as far as sample population, but also very targeted to our Michigan geology, different formations, age, etc. And they're going to be operating wells. So that's going to be informative, because not only is it just the wellhead leaking, but on an operating well, are you losing gas at pneumatic controllers and other spaces, tank vapors, those kind of things. So we'll see how we compare nationally on that too. It should be interesting.
Thank you for answering both my questions.
Yeah, I mean, on this question of scale, our air quality division is doing a lot of work, and MMD as well, on trying to better control landfill methane. And we have some landfills that are methane, generating methane from this renewable energy. So I'm just, and Adam, you might know this, more than I would, but I think the scale of some of that can be kind of large. You know, we're out, you know, coming up with new monitoring techniques and all of this to try to control it, and probably less measured. So would you agree with that? Like that's a bigger scale methane specific issue?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, we can get the group some more information if they want, but I think as far as the orphan wells, I'm encouraged. I had thought that emission rates were lower than some of the national studies. And I think our data is bearing that out. And when we have the methane, the MERP program studies done, we'll know exactly kind of where we're sitting and have an overall better picture on what kind of methane impact we have on the atmosphere on the overall oil patch.
Yeah, I mean, that said, you should feel really proud of the work of your division on this. And I mean, this is important work for a variety of reasons. And hey, capitalizing on a funding opportunity and getting the most out of it, it all adds up. So this is one of those areas that might not have been on everybody's radar, and through your efforts, you've been attacking it really, really aggressively and making a lot of progress.
Yeah, I mean, we were able to do basically 20 years of work in the last couple of years. So, I mean, it's amazing generational opportunity, maybe bigger than that, to address some of these concerns.
Yeah, well done.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, to answer Sam's question, because you said this earlier, Julia, the methane to CO2 equivalent conversion is like, on the conservative side, say 25 times the global warming potential. So it's the 0.25 tons per year times that, and I think you're at almost 7 tons per year CO2 equivalent. So
yeah, it's not nothing.
It's not nothing, no.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Adam. And I did put a link in the chat to that map that you featured on the slides. I would encourage council members to check out that link. Also highlighting excellent work of Eagle's Information Management Division. They've done really awesome GIS mapping work. So just to plug that. All right. I think over to you, Director Roos, to close us out.
All right. If there aren't any other questions, I'll just do next steps here. Our next meeting is Tuesday, February 24th. And that's in 2026 from 1 to 3. In the meantime, if you want to capture any of the meeting materials or other resources, are on michigan.gov/climate. And I don't know if we have any public folks from the general public on here, but written comments can be submitted via email to eagle-climatesolutions@michigan.gov. And if there's no other orders of business, then I'll take a motion to adjourn. Give you back a few minutes.
Moved by Carrie.
Carrie, okay. The silent.
Support Harrison.
Sarah, Jim, you have been coming through big time here. All right, any discussion on the adjournment motion? All right, well, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all for your commitment, for all you're doing to support this effort. And we'll look forward to the next meeting and maybe some interaction in between.
Thank you.